Sarah Morgan stared at the moving boxes stacked against her living room wall. After 15 years of marriage, this was what remained. Cardboard containers filled with memories that no longer fit into her life. The divorce papers had been signed last week, and tomorrow she would leave the suburban home she had once believed would house her happily ever after. "Mom, where should I put these photo albums?" Lily, her 14-year-old daughter, stood in the doorway, arms full of leather-bound books. "Just put them in the box labeled Study," Sarah replied, trying to keep her voice steady. She watched as Lily carefully placed the albums in the box, noting how her daughter's shoulders seemed to carry a weight no teenager should have to bear. The past year had been a slow unraveling. First came David's confession about his affair with a colleague. Not a passionate mistake, but a calculated 2-year relationship. Then the arguments, the couple's therapy that came too late, and finally the mutual admission that whatever they had once built together had crumbled beyond repair. "Dad called," Lily said, not meeting Sarah's eyes. "He wanted to know if we need help with the move tomorrow." Sarah suppressed the urge to make a bitter comment. "Tell him we're fine. Uncle Jack is coming with his truck." She turned away, pretending to organize kitchen items so Lily wouldn't see her face. At 39, Sarah had never imagined starting over. She had a decent job as an office manager at a dental practice, but she'd always prioritized home life over career advancement. Now that decision felt like another mistake in a long list of misjudgments. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Sarah sat alone on the floor of her half-empty bedroom. She allowed herself to cry, not for David or even for the marriage, but for the version of herself that had disappeared somewhere along the way. The woman who used to paint on weekends, who had dreams beyond this house, who laughed easily and believed in possibilities. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister, Beth. "Everything ready for tomorrow? Want me to come over early?" Sarah typed back, "All set. Could use the company, though." Beth arrived 20 minutes later with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. She found Sarah sitting cross-legged on the bedroom floor, surrounded by old journals. "Found these while packing," Sarah explained. "From before I met David." Beth sat down beside her, pouring wine into the glasses. "You were quite the dreamer back then. What happened to her?" Sarah asked, flipping through pages filled with plans and hopes. Art school applications, travel sketches, writings about the life she had imagined. "She's still in there," Beth said, handing her a glass. "Just buried under a lot of life." Sarah took a long sip. "I don't even know who I am without this place, without being David's wife." "That's the thing about breaking points," Beth replied. "They force you to find out." The next morning brought the chaos of moving day. Jack arrived with his truck. Beth handled Lily's emotional moments, and by afternoon, Sarah was standing in her new apartment, a modest 2-bedroom rental closer to downtown. It was nothing special, with beige walls and outdated kitchen cabinets, but it was clean and bright, and, most importantly, hers. Lily had chosen the larger bedroom, immediately starting to arrange her things with the determined focus of someone trying to create normalcy. Sarah watched from the doorway, noting how her daughter methodically positioned each item, as if proper placement could somehow restore order to their upended lives. "Is this okay, Mom?" Lily asked, gesturing around the room. "I know it's smaller than my old one." "It's perfect," Sarah assured her. "We'll get some new shelves next weekend, and maybe paint if the landlord allows it." When Jack and Beth finally left, promising to return the next day with the last few boxes from storage, Sarah and Lily ordered pizza and sat on the floor of their empty living room. They ate in silence for a while, the magnitude of the change settling around them. "Do you think we'll be okay?" Lily asked suddenly, her voice small. Sarah looked at her daughter, this young woman with David's chin in her eyes, caught between childhood and something else, and felt a fierce protectiveness rise within her. "Yes," she said with surprising certainty. "Not right away maybe, but we will be." That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Sarah sat alone by the apartment window. The view was different here, no manicured lawns, but instead a small city park across the street, now dark except for scattered lamp posts. She opened her laptop and, almost without thinking, searched for local community college courses. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she scrolled through the listings. Introduction to Graphic Design, Creative Writing Workshop, Business Entrepreneurship. She hadn't allowed herself to think about what she wanted in so long that the question felt foreign. The woman in those old journals seemed like a stranger, passionate, hopeful, unafraid. Sarah couldn't become that person again. Too much had happened. But perhaps she could become someone new, someone who carried the wisdom of her mistakes alongside the courage to try again. She registered for a single class, Introduction to Digital Marketing, scheduled for Tuesday evenings. It wasn't a grand gesture or a complete reinvention, just a small step away from the life that had broken apart. As she closed her laptop, Sarah felt something unfamiliar stirring inside her chest. Not happiness exactly, but its quiet predecessor, possibility. 3 months into their new life, Sarah and Lily had established a routine of sorts. Mornings were a rush of cereal bowls and hastily packed lunches, with Sarah dropping Lily at school before heading to the dental office. Evenings were homework at the kitchen table, dinner on the couch, and occasional arguments about screen time and curfews, normal things that sometimes felt like victories in their not-yet-normal life. Sarah's digital marketing class had become an unexpected anchor in her week. Professor Morales, a former advertising executive with salt and pepper hair and infectious enthusiasm, made the 3-hour Tuesday sessions fly by. Sarah found herself taking detailed notes and actually completing the optional assignments, surprising herself with how quickly she absorbed the material. "You have a natural instinct for this," Professor Morales told her after class one evening, when she presented a social media strategy for a fictional bakery. "Have you considered pursuing it professionally?" Sarah had laughed. "I'm just trying to keep up with the 20-somethings in class." "Age isn't the advantage you think it is," he replied. "Experience is. You understand how people think, what motivates them. That's marketing at its core." His words stayed with her during the drive home, a small flame of confidence she hadn't felt in years. The apartment was gradually becoming home. They'd painted Lily's room a soft teal and found a secondhand desk at a yard sale. The living room now had a proper couch instead of camping chairs, and Sarah had splurged on a set of cheerful yellow curtains that brightened the space on even the grayest days. David saw Lily every other weekend, and while those Saturdays and Sundays left the apartment eerily quiet, Sarah had slowly stopped filling every moment with chores or work. Sometimes she sketched while drinking coffee by the window, or met Beth for a movie. Small indulgences that were becoming less guilt-inducing with each passing week. One Wednesday evening in April, Sarah arrived home to find Lily sitting at the kitchen table with red-rimmed eyes. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, immediately setting down her bags. Lily pushed her phone across the table. On the screen was a social media post showing David with his arm around a young woman with perfect teeth and highlighted hair. The caption read, "Office dinner with the team." "Is that her?" Lily asked. Sarah studied the photo, feeling a dull ache rather than the sharp pain she had expected. "Probably," she said quietly. "She looks like she's barely older than me," Lily said, her voice cracking. 28, Sarah corrected, remembering the details from the divorce discussions. "She's actually quite accomplished. MBA from Stanford." "Why aren't you mad?" Lily demanded. "He ruined everything for her." Sarah sat down, choosing her words carefully. "I was mad for a long time. So mad I could barely breathe sometimes. But being angry at her, or even at your dad, doesn't fix anything. So we just pretend it's fine? That our family didn't blow up." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We acknowledge that it hurts. We talk about it. We cry when we need to. But we also keep moving forward, because staying stuck in that anger only hurts us more." Lily stared at her for a long moment before asking, "Is that what you're doing? Moving forward?" The question caught Sarah off guard. Was she? The marketing class, the small social circle she was building, the job application she'd submitted last week for a patient communications role at a larger practice. These were steps, but toward what? "I'm trying," she finally answered. "Some days are better than others." Later, after they'd ordered Chinese food and watched a movie that successfully distracted them both, Sarah called Beth from her bedroom. "Lily saw a picture of David with Kimberly," she explained. "The child bride." Beth asked dryly. "She's 28, Beth. Still robbing the cradle. How's Lily taking it?" "Better than I expected, actually. She's angry, but she talked about it instead of shutting down." "And how are you taking it?" Sarah considered the question. "Strangely okay. I felt something, but it wasn't devastating. More like seeing an old injury that's mostly healed." "That's progress," Beth said approvingly. "Speaking of progress, did you apply for that job?" "I did, but I'm not getting my hopes up. There were probably hundreds of applicants with actual marketing experience." But how many have 15 years of managing patient relationships? That counts for something. The following Tuesday, Sarah received an email requesting an interview for the communications position. She read it 3 times, making sure it wasn't sent by mistake, before forwarding it to Beth with a string of exclamation points. The interview was scheduled for Friday afternoon. Sarah took a half day from work, changed into the new blouse she'd bought for the occasion, and arrived 20 minutes early. As she sat in the reception area of the medical group's administrative offices, she felt oddly calm. The worst they could say was no, and even that wouldn't take away the fact that they'd seen something in her application worth exploring. The interview panel consisted of 3 people: the HR director, the outgoing communications manager, and the chief medical officer. They asked about her experience, her coursework, and how she would handle specific scenarios. Sarah answered honestly, drawing on her years at the dental practice and the case studies from Professor Morales' class. "Your resume shows you've been at the same practice for almost a decade," the HR director noted. "What prompted you to seek a change now?" Sarah paused, considering how much personal information to share. "Life circumstances made me reevaluate my career path," she said carefully. "I realized I had skills I wasn't fully utilizing, and I wanted to challenge myself professionally." The chief medical officer nodded. That kind of self-awareness is valuable. People who actively choose change rather than wait for it to be forced upon them tend to bring a positive energy to new roles. By the time she left the building, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and pride, regardless of the outcome. She had put herself forward, presented her capabilities confidently, and allowed herself to want something more. When she arrived home, Lily was already there, sprawled on the couch with homework. "How'd it go?" she asked, looking up from her textbook. "Better than I expected," Sarah replied honestly. "They said they'll let me know by next Wednesday." Lily studied her mother's face. "You look different." "Different how?" "I don't know. Less worried, maybe." Sarah smiled. "Maybe I am." That weekend, while Lily was with David, Sarah met her former co-worker Denise for coffee. They'd stayed in touch after Sarah's departure from the dental office, meeting occasionally to catch up. "So you're really doing it," Denise said admiringly after hearing about the interview. "Reinventing yourself." Sarah shook her head. "Not reinventing. Just continuing. Like I pressed pause for a really long time, and now I'm figuring out how to press play again." "Well, whatever you call it, it suits you," Denise replied, raising her mug in a toast. To pressing play, Sarah clinked her cup against her friend's, realizing that the steps forward she'd been taking, however small, had been carrying her somewhere after all. Not back to who she used to be, but towards someone new, someone who was beginning to feel, surprisingly, like herself. The job offer came on a rainy Tuesday morning. Sarah was between patients when her phone buzzed with the email notification. She ducked into the break room, hands slightly shaking as she opened the message. The position was hers if she wanted it, with a salary that made her eyes widen and benefits that included tuition assistance for continued education. She called Beth immediately. "They offered me the job," she whispered, aware of colleagues in the hallway. "Of course they did," Beth replied, sounding completely unsurprised. "When do you start?" 3 weeks, if I accept." "If?" "Sarah Morgan, don't you dare talk yourself out of this." Sarah laughed. "I'm not. I just need to figure out the logistics. The office is downtown, so my commute will be longer, and I'll need to arrange something for Lily after school." Details, Beth dismissed. Manageable details. By the time Sarah arrived home that evening, her mind was made up. She'd already drafted her resignation letter and made a list of potential after-school options for Lily. When her daughter came through the door at 6:30, backpack slung over one shoulder, Sarah was waiting with takeout pizza. "Special occasion?" Lily asked, eyeing the pizza box and the bottle of sparkling cider on the table. "I got the job," Sarah announced. Lily's face broke into a genuine smile, the kind that had become rare in recent months. "That's awesome, Mom." She threw her arms around Sarah in a spontaneous hug. "When do you start? Do you get your own office? Is the pay better?" "Yes to the last question, and I start in 3 weeks," Sarah replied, returning the hug with equal enthusiasm. "We should be able to get you that laptop for school projects now." They celebrated over pizza, making plans for the weekend to shop for some new work clothes for Sarah. The conversation flowed easily, with none of the underlying tension that had become so common. For the first time in months, Sarah felt like they were moving towards something, not just away from the past. The transition to the new job went more smoothly than Sarah had anticipated. The medical group's offices were in a sleek building downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a staff cafeteria that made her packed lunches seem unnecessary. Her role involved overseeing all patient communications, from appointment reminders to educational materials, and coordinating with marketing for community outreach. Sarah's manager, Vivian Chun, was a brisk, efficient woman in her 50s who expected excellence but provided clear guidance. Under her mentorship, Sarah quickly adapted to the faster pace and broader responsibilities. The physicians were impressed with the revised vaccination reminder you created, Vivian mentioned during their third-week check-in. Particularly Dr. Reed. He's usually our toughest critic. I'm glad it met expectations, Sarah replied, making a note to review the other educational materials with a similar approach. It exceeded them, Vivian corrected. In fact, Dr. Reed suggested you join the Patient Education Committee. They meet monthly to discuss materials for complex conditions. It would be good exposure for you. That evening, Sarah looked up Dr. Reed on the medical group's website, curious about this tough critic who had noticed her work. His photo showed a man about her age, with dark-rimmed glasses and a serious expression that didn't quite match the warmth in his eyes. His bio mentioned fellowships at prestigious institutions, publications in medical journals, and a special interest in improving health literacy among underserved populations. The committee meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday during lunch. Sarah prepared thoroughly, reviewing all current patient materials and researching best practices in health communication. When she entered the conference room, she recognized several physicians and administrators she'd met during her first weeks. Dr. Reed sat at the far end, reviewing notes on his tablet. Sarah, welcome, said Dr. Patel, the committee chair. Everyone, this is Sarah Morgan, our new patient communications manager. Sarah, I believe you know most people here except perhaps Dr. Reed. Dr. Reed looked up, meeting her eyes with a direct gaze. James Reed, he said, extending his hand across the table. I was impressed with your vaccination materials. Clear without being condescending. A difficult balance to achieve. Thank you, Sarah replied, shaking his hand. I find treating patients as partners rather than recipients usually leads to better engagement. He nodded, looking somewhat surprised by her response. Exactly right. I've been making that argument for years. The meeting progressed with discussions about upcoming educational needs, particularly for a new diabetes management program. Sarah listened carefully, taking notes and offering suggestions when appropriate. She noticed that Dr. Reed, James, often advocated for simpler language and more visual aids, positions she strongly supported. When the meeting ended, Sarah gathered her materials, answering questions from Dr. Patel about implementation timelines. As she headed toward the door, she found James Reed waiting. Do you have a moment? He asked. I'd like to get your thoughts on some patient feedback we've received. They walked together to his office, a surprisingly modest space lined with medical texts and framed children's artwork. He noticed her looking at the drawings. My nieces and nephew, he explained. They think their uncle needs more color in his life. They're not wrong, Sarah observed, glancing around the otherwise austere office. Doctors' offices can be intimidating enough without feeling like a mausoleum. He laughed unexpectedly, a warm sound that transformed his serious demeanor. Point taken. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Please sit. I wanted to show you these survey results. For the next 20 minutes, they reviewed patient comments about confusion regarding medication instructions. Sarah suggested several approaches, including visual schedules and simplified language. James took notes, asking thoughtful follow-up questions. This is extremely helpful, he said when they'd finished. Would you be willing to work directly with me on revising these materials? I can talk to Vivian about allocating some of your time to this project. I'd be happy to, Sarah replied, surprised by how much she meant it. There was something compelling about his earnest dedication to patient understanding. Over the following weeks, Sarah and James met regularly to work on the medication guides. Their collaboration was productive, with each bringing different perspectives to the table. Sarah learned that James had grown up in a rural community where health literacy was low, which fueled his passion for clear communication. My grandfather died of a heart attack that might have been prevented, he explained during one of their working lunches. He was prescribed medication but didn't understand how important it was to take it regularly. The instructions might as well have been in another language. Sarah found herself sharing stories from her own life as well. Her frustrations as a patient during her pregnancy with Lily, the confusion she'd felt reading her divorce papers, the way clear information could provide comfort during uncertain times. "You have remarkable insight," James told her one afternoon as they reviewed a particularly challenging set of instructions for post-surgical care. "I've worked with marketing people before who just want to make things sound good rather than be genuinely helpful. That's probably because I'm not really a marketing person," Sarah admitted. "At least not originally. I'm still learning. Sometimes fresh eyes are exactly what's needed," he replied. Too much expertise can create blind spots. In mid-June, the medical group hosted a staff appreciation picnic at a local park. Lily was spending the weekend with David, so Sarah attended alone, joining a table with Vivian and some colleagues from her department. The day was perfect, warm but not hot, with a light breeze that carried the scent of grilled food and fresh-cut grass. Sarah was standing in line for ice cream when she spotted James with a teenage boy who had his same serious eyes. "Sarah," James called, waving her over. "This is my son, Michael." "Michael, this is Ms. Morgan, who I've been working with on those patient guides." "The ones with the cool graphics?" Michael asked, shaking her hand with surprising formality for a boy who couldn't be more than 16. "Dad showed me. Way better than the old ones." "High praise," Sarah smiled. "Do you have an interest in medicine like your father?" Michael shook his head. "Computer science. But I helped with some of the digital mock-ups." The interactive medication scheduler was Michael's idea, James explained proudly. "He's quite the programmer." Sarah felt a sudden pang, thinking of Lily, who would be Michael's age in just a couple of years. "My daughter would be impressed. She's been trying to teach herself coding." "There's a great summer workshop at the community center," Michael offered. "That's where I started. They might still have spots open." As they chatted, Sarah found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't expected. There was something easy about talking with James outside the office, watching him interact with his son with obvious affection and respect. When Michael wandered off to join some other teenagers, James turned to her with a slightly apologetic smile. He doesn't get many chances to talk about coding with adults who actually listen. His mother's eyes glaze over after about 30 seconds. "You're divorced?" Sarah asked before she could stop herself. He nodded. 3 years now. Michael lives with me during the school year, and with his mom in Chicago during summers and holidays. "That must be hard," Sarah said softly. "It was at first. Now it's just our normal." He studied her face for a moment. "You too." "A little over a year," she replied. "My daughter Lily is 14. She's with me most of the time." Something shifted between them in that moment of shared understanding. A bridge forming across similar experiences, similar challenges, similar resilience. "Would you like to take a walk?" James asked. "The trails around the lake are nice, and I've had about all the mandatory fun I can handle for one afternoon." Sarah laughed, recognizing the introvert's familiar discomfort with prolonged social events. "I thought doctors were supposed to be better at hiding their desire to escape." "Only during office hours," he replied with a smile. They walked along the lakeside path, talking about their children, their work, books they'd read recently. The conversation flowed naturally, without the awkwardness Sarah had come to expect from interactions with men since her divorce. There was no pressure, no posturing, just two people getting to know each other as the afternoon sun dappled the path before them. By late summer, Sarah and James had fallen into a comfortable routine of weekly lunch meetings that often extended beyond work discussions. What had started as collaboration on patient materials had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. A friendship built on mutual respect and easy conversation. "Dad's texting again," Lily announced one evening as they prepared dinner together, a new tradition they'd established on Thursdays. She handed Sarah her phone with an exaggerated eye roll. Sarah glanced at the message. David was asking to switch weekends due to a business trip. "Is that okay with you?" she asked, passing the phone back. Lily shrugged, returning to chopping vegetables. "I guess. It's fine." Sarah studied her daughter's profile, noticing the slight tension in her jaw. "You sure? You can tell him no if you had plans." "It's just..." Lily hesitated. "He's canceled twice this month already. Always last minute." Sarah felt the familiar flare of protectiveness, but kept her voice neutral. "Would you like me to talk to him?" "No," Lily said quickly. "I'll handle it. I just wanted you to know." The simple statement, "I just wanted you to know," caught Sarah off guard. A year ago, Lily would have kept her disappointment private, not wanting to burden her mother with more emotional weight. The fact that she was sharing now felt like a victory of sorts. Well, if he's not taking you this weekend, how about we try that new rock climbing place? The one Zoe's been talking about. Lily's face brightened. Really? I thought you said it was too expensive. I got my first quarterly bonus yesterday, Sarah explained, unable to keep the pride from her voice. We should celebrate a little. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Sarah's phone lit up with a text from James, patient guide draft attached. Also, wondering if you'd be interested in catching that jazz performance at River Park on Saturday? No pressure. Sarah stared at the message, feeling a flutter of nervousness she hadn't experienced in years. They'd never met outside of work except for the staff picnic. This felt different, intentional in a way their previous interactions hadn't been. She typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on. I'd love to, but I've got Lily this weekend. X had to reschedule. His reply came quickly. Bring her along? Unless that would be weird. Michael's with his mom, so it would just be the 3 of us. Sarah considered the offer. Lily was perceptive. She would immediately understand this wasn't just a colleague. On the other hand, Sarah had been careful not to hide things from her daughter, believing honesty was essential to rebuilding their trust. Let me check with her. She might prefer our rock climbing plans, but I'll let you know. The following morning, Sarah casually mentioned James's invitation over breakfast. He's the doctor I've been working with on those education materials, she explained, trying to sound matter-of-fact. There's a jazz concert at River Park on Saturday. Lily looked up from her cereal with sudden interest. Wait, is this like a date? No, it's just. Sarah trailed off, realizing she wasn't sure what it was. He's a friend from work. He invited us both. Us both, Lily repeated, eyebrows raised. So definitely not a date. Would that bother you? Sarah asked carefully. If it was, Lily considered the question with surprising seriousness. I don't know. It's been weird enough with Dad and Kimberly. But, she shrugged. You seem different lately. Happier. I am happier, Sarah admitted. But that's not just because of any one person. It's a lot of things. The new job, our apartment, seeing you doing so well in school. So if I wanted to go rock climbing instead? Then we go rock climbing, Sarah said firmly. No question. Lily studied her mother's face. What do you want to do? The directness of the question caught Sarah by surprise. For so long, her default had been to prioritize everyone else's needs and wants. Honestly, I'd like to go to the concert, but I'd also like to go rock climbing with you. Both sound nice. Lily nodded slowly. Let's do the concert, she decided. But you owe me rock climbing next weekend. Deal. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, warm with a light breeze that carried the first hints of autumn. They met James at the entrance to River Park, where he was waiting with a folding blanket under one arm and a small cooler. I brought snacks, he explained with a slightly embarrassed smile. Force of habit from years of Michael's baseball games. Lily eyed him with undisguised curiosity. Sarah had mentioned him occasionally, but this was their first meeting. Did you bring good snacks or healthy doctor snacks? She asked bluntly. James laughed. A strategic combination. Grapes and hummus to maintain my medical credibility, but also those chocolate-covered pretzels from Trader Joe's. Acceptable, Lily declared, relaxing slightly. They found a spot on the grass with a good view of the stage. As the jazz quartet played, Sarah observed the careful dance between James and Lily, his respectful questions, her gradually warming responses. By intermission, they were debating the merits of different Marvel movies with surprising animation. I can't believe you're a doctor who likes superhero movies, Lily said. I can't believe you think Black Panther isn't the best one, he countered. Sarah smiled, content to listen. There was something about seeing James outside the context of work, in jeans and a faded university t-shirt, passionate about something as ordinary as movies, that made her chest feel warm. The afternoon stretched pleasantly into early evening. As the concert ended and they packed up their things, James asked Lily about school and her coding interests. Mom mentioned you were teaching yourself programming? Lily nodded. Mostly from YouTube tutorials. We don't have great classes at school. Michael started that way too, James said. He mentioned a workshop at the community center. The one that costs $300 for 6 weeks? Lily asked, her tone making it clear she'd already researched it. They have scholarships, James offered. Michael was a peer mentor last year. I could ask him about the application process if you're interested. Sarah watched as Lily's expression shifted from skepticism to genuine interest. That would be cool. Thanks. When they reached Sarah's car, James helped load their things into the trunk. This was fun, he said, his voice pitched low enough that Lily, who had already climbed into the passenger seat, couldn't hear. Thank you for coming. Both of you. It was, Sarah agreed. Something in his expression made her add, maybe we could do it again sometime. Maybe without the jazz. He smiled. I'd like that. On the drive home, Lily was uncharacteristically quiet, looking out the window at the passing streetlights. What did you think? Sarah finally asked, unable to contain her curiosity. He's not what I expected, Lily admitted. He's actually kind of cool. For an old person. Sarah laughed. We're the same age, you know. Yeah, but he's a dad old person. Different category. Lily turned to look at her mother. He likes you. We're friends, Sarah said automatically. Lily rolled her eyes. Mom, he brought your favorite chocolate pretzels that you mentioned one time. He likes you. Sarah felt her cheeks warm. We'll see. Just don't get weird about it, okay? Like, don't start wearing different clothes or talking differently or whatever. Is that what you think dating is? Sarah asked, amused. That's what Zoe's mom did when she started dating her stepdad. Suddenly, she was all into hiking and had all these new outdoor clothes. It was gross. Sarah reached over to squeeze her daughter's hand. I promised to remain completely, authentically gross in my normal way. Good, Lily said, squeezing back. That night, Sarah sent James a text. Thanks for today. Lily had a great time. The scholarship information would be amazing if you can get it. His reply came a few minutes later. Already texted Michael. He'll send details tomorrow. I had a wonderful time too. Your daughter is remarkable. Like her mother. Sarah stared at the message, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Pleasure at the compliment, nervousness about what might come next, and underneath it all, a quiet certainty that whatever this was, it felt right in a way few things had lately. She typed back, dinner next Friday? Just the two of us. The three dots appeared immediately, followed by his response. I'll make reservations. Autumn arrived with a burst of color and a new rhythm to their lives. Sarah and James had been dating for nearly 2 months. Careful, measured dates that worked around their schedules and their children. They met for lunch during workdays, occasional dinners when Lily stayed with friends, and weekend outings that sometimes included Lily or Michael, sometimes just the two of them. Sarah was surprised by how easy it felt, how naturally James had slipped into their lives. He respected her boundaries, never pushed for more than she was ready to give, and seemed to genuinely understand the delicate balance she maintained between her various roles. Mother, professional, and now, someone's partner. You look different, Beth observed during their monthly sister lunch. More settled somehow. Sarah smiled, pushing her salad around with her fork. Things are good. Work is challenging, but in the right ways. Lily's doing well in school. The coding workshop has been amazing. For her. And James. She trailed off, not quite sure how to describe what his presence in her life meant. Ah, James, Beth teased. The good doctor who makes my sister blush like a teenager. I do not blush, Sarah protested, feeling her cheeks warm. You're literally blushing right now, Beth pointed out. It's nice to see. You deserve someone who makes you happy. It's still early, Sarah cautioned. We're taking things slow. Slow is good, Beth agreed. Especially with kids involved. Speaking of which, how's Lily handling all this? Better than I expected, honestly. She and James get along well. They have this ongoing debate about sci-fi movies that I can't follow half the time. And she's met Michael a few times. They're not exactly friends, but they're civil. And David, has he met the new man in your life? Sarah shook her head. No, and I'm not sure when or if that needs to happen. We only see each other at pickup and drop-off, and those are already awkward enough. The next day brought an unexpected complication. Sarah was in a meeting when her phone buzzed with a call from Lily's school. She excused herself to answer it. Ms. Morgan? This is Principal Winters. There's been an incident involving Lily. She's not hurt, but we need you to come to the school. 20 minutes later, Sarah rushed through the school's front doors, her mind racing with possibilities. She found Lily sitting outside the principal's office, arms crossed tightly over her chest, her expression a mixture of anger and embarrassment. What happened? Sarah asked, sitting beside her. Jason Miller is a jerk, Lily muttered. That's what happened. Before Sarah could press for details, Principal Winters emerged from her office. "Ms. Morgan, thank you for coming so quickly. Please, come in. Lily, you can wait here for a few more minutes." Inside the office, Principal Winters explained that Lily had been involved in a heated argument with a classmate that had escalated to shouting and, according to a teacher, a shove. "This isn't like Lily," Sarah said, confused. "She's never been in trouble before." "I agree, which is why I wanted to speak with you directly," Principal Winters replied. According to other students, Jason made some comments about Lily's father and his girlfriend, suggesting that he had upgraded. Lily apparently told him to shut up, and when he continued, things escalated. Sarah felt a wave of protective anger. "So this boy was taunting my daughter about her parents' divorce, and she's the one in trouble?" "They're both facing consequences," Principal Winters assured her. "Jason has detention for the rest of the week. For Lily, given this is her first incident, I'm requiring a reflection essay and a meeting with our counselor. But I wanted you to be aware of the situation." When they left the school, Lily was silent, staring out the car window as Sarah drove. "Do you want to talk about it?" Sarah asked gently. "No," Lily said, then immediately contradicted herself. "It's just so stupid. Jason's in my biology group, and he was showing everyone pictures from his dad's fishing trip. His dad and my dad are friends from the golf club or whatever. So there were pictures of Dad and Kimberly on the boat, and Jason said." Her voice caught. "He said Dad definitely traded up. Like Mom was some used car or something." Sarah gripped the steering wheel tighter, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I'm sorry, honey. That was incredibly cruel of him. I tried to ignore it. I really did," Lily continued. "But then he kept going, asking if you were dating anyone, saying probably not because who wants a—" She stopped abruptly. "It's okay," Sarah said. "You can tell me." "He called you a leftover mom," Lily whispered. "That's when I lost it." Sarah pulled into a parking lot, putting the car in park before turning to face her daughter. "Listen to me. What Jason said was horrible and completely untrue. But how you respond to people like that matters. There are always going to be cruel people in the world. So I'm just supposed to let him talk about you like that?" Lily demanded. "No," Sarah said firmly. "You stand up for yourself and for people you love. But there are ways to do that without letting them drag you down to their level. What you say to people like Jason is, 'I feel sorry for you, that you think it's okay to talk about people that way.' And then you walk away, because their opinion doesn't matter." Lily wiped at her eyes. "I'm sorry I got in trouble." "I'm not mad about that," Sarah assured her. "I'm mad that you were hurt. That's different." That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Sarah called James and told him what had happened. "Poor kid," he said sympathetically. "Middle school is brutal on its own, without adding divorce dynamics to the mix." "It just makes me so angry," Sarah admitted. "Not just at this Jason kid, but at David too. He's so wrapped up in his new life that he doesn't see how it's affecting Lily." "Have you talked to him about it?" "Not recently," Sarah sighed. "Our conversations tend to be limited to logistics. When he's picking her up, when he's dropping her off." "Maybe this is a good reason to have a real conversation," James suggested carefully. For Lily's sake. Sarah knew he was right, but the thought of confronting David made her stomach knot. Their last substantive discussion had dissolved into mutual accusations and hurt feelings. "I'll think about it," she promised. The opportunity came sooner than expected. When David dropped Lily off that Sunday evening, instead of the usual quick exchange at the door, Sarah asked him to come in. "Is something wrong?" he asked, clearly surprised by the invitation. "We need to talk about what happened at school," Sarah said, leading him into the living room. Lily had already disappeared into her bedroom, a standard maneuver to avoid witnessing her parents' interactions. David listened as Sarah explained the incident, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "I had no idea," he said when she finished. "Lily didn't mention anything this weekend." "She's trying to protect you," Sarah replied. "She doesn't want to make you feel bad about Kimberly or your relationship. But the reality is, she's struggling with it more than she lets on." David ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it gave Sarah an odd pang of déjà vu. "What do you suggest? Should I stop seeing Kimberly?" "Because that's not going to happen, Sarah." "That's not what I'm asking," Sarah said, keeping her voice even. "I'm asking you to be more mindful of how your relationship affects Lily. Maybe limit the social media posts, or at least make sure she doesn't have to see them through her friends. And maybe consider having some one-on-one time with her without Kimberly, so she knows she still matters in your life. David was quiet for a moment. You're right, he finally said. I've been focused on moving forward, on building this new life, and I didn't stop to think how it all looks to her. He hesitated before adding, Beth mentioned you're seeing someone too. Sarah nodded, caught off guard by the change in topic. Yes, his name is James. He's a doctor at the medical group where I work. Is it serious? The question felt invasive, but Sarah reminded herself that as Lily's father, he had some right to know who was in his daughter's life. We're taking things slowly. But yes, I care about him. David nodded, an unreadable expression crossing his face. Good. That's good. You deserve to be happy, Sarah. The words, so similar to what Beth had said, struck Sarah differently coming from David. There was a finality to them, an acknowledgement that their chapter was truly closed and new ones were being written. Thank you, she said simply. So do you. After David left, Sarah sat alone in the living room, feeling emotionally drained but also relieved. It had been their first conversation in over a year that hadn't left her angry or hurt. Progress, however small, was still progress. The following Friday, Sarah and James had dinner at a small Italian restaurant downtown. As they shared a plate of tiramisu, Sarah told him about her conversation with David. I'm proud of you, James said. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, Sarah admitted. But it was necessary. For Lily's sake. James reached across the table to take her hand. Can I tell you something? Sarah nodded, noting the sudden seriousness in his tone. These past couple of months have been some of the best I've had in a long time, he said. I wasn't looking for a relationship when we met. After my divorce, I figured I'd just focus on work and Michael until he went to college. But then there was you, with your thoughtful questions and your determination to make things better for patients, and the way you talk about Lily with such love and respect. Sarah felt her throat tighten with emotion. James, I'm not trying to rush anything, he assured her quickly. I know we're both being careful, for good reasons. I just wanted you to know that I'm in this. Whatever pace works for you, for Lily, for us as a whole, I'm here. Sarah squeezed his hand, thinking about how far she'd come from that night on her bedroom floor, surrounded by packed boxes and uncertainty. I'm in this too, she said softly. And I'm not as scared as I thought I'd be. Later, as they walked to their cars, James pulled her close under the glow of a streetlight. Should we try a real family dinner soon? You, me, Lily, and Michael? Before he goes back to his mom's for Thanksgiving. The suggestion, so simple yet so significant, made Sarah smile. I think we're ready for that. He kissed her then, gentle and unhurried, as if they had all the time in the world. And for the first time in a very long while, Sarah believed that maybe they did. Winter arrived with unexpected intensity, blanketing the city in snow and transforming their usual routines. Schools closed for 2 days. The medical group operated with minimal staff, and Sarah found herself working from home, sharing the apartment with a restless teenager who alternated between coding projects and complaints about cabin fever. This is the third snow day this month, Lily groaned, sprawled dramatically across the couch. I'm going to die of boredom before spring. Sarah glanced up from her laptop, where she'd been editing patient newsletters. You could clean your room. I hear that's a thrilling snow day activity. Lily rolled her eyes. Hilarious, Mom. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from James. Michael and I are making chili. Too much for 2 people. Dinner at our place tonight. Roads are clear on this side of town. She showed the message to Lily. What do you think? Venture out for real food, or stick with our frozen pizza plan? James makes good chili, Lily conceded, sitting up. And I'm supposed to help Michael with that coding project for the community center anyway. The casual way Lily referenced these plans, as if regular dinners with James and Michael were the most natural thing in the world, still caught Sarah by surprise sometimes. In the months since their first family dinner, these gatherings had become increasingly common. At first, they'd been carefully orchestrated events with board games or movies to provide structure. Now they had the comfortable rhythm of routine, homework at the kitchen table, shared cooking responsibilities, easy conversation. James's house was a modest split level in a quiet neighborhood with mature trees. When they arrived, stomping snow from their boots in the entryway, Michael greeted them with his usual polite nod before immediately launching into a technical explanation of the website he and Lily were building for the community center. We figured out the database issue, he told Lily, leading her toward the basement where they'd set up a makeshift coding workspace. Dad's friend from the hospital IT department showed me a workaround. Sarah watched them disappear downstairs, still marveling at the unlikely friendship that had developed between the serious, methodical Michael and her more impulsive daughter. They balanced each other well. Michael providing structure to Lily's creative ideas, Lily pushing Michael to think beyond conventional solutions. In the kitchen, James stood stirring a massive pot of chili, reading glasses perched on his nose as he consulted a handwritten recipe card. "My mother's recipe," he explained when he saw Sarah looking. "She'd be horrified that I add extra cumin, but some traditions need updating." Sarah moved beside him, wrapping an arm around his waist and resting her head against his shoulder. "It smells amazing." He turned to kiss her forehead, a simple gesture that had become beautifully familiar. "How was your snow day?" "Productive, actually. I finished the diabetes management guides and started on the spring wellness campaign." She reached for a spoon to taste the chili. "This is perfect. Don't tell your mother." But the extra cumin was the right call. Dinner was served around the kitchen island, with conversations overlapping as they often did. Michael describing a college program he was interested in visiting, Lily recounting the drama from her last science club meeting, James sharing a patient success story, Sarah updating them on Beth's latest house renovation disaster. As she listened to Lily laugh at something Michael said, Sarah felt a familiar warmth spread through her chest. This feeling, this sense of belonging with these people who had entered their lives so unexpectedly, still surprised her. It wasn't the family she had imagined for herself all those years ago, but there was something more authentic about it, something hard-earned and therefore more precious. After dinner, while the kids returned to their project, Sarah and James cleaned up together, moving around the kitchen with the synchronized efficiency of people accustomed to sharing space. "I've been thinking," James said as he loaded the dishwasher. "Michael's spring break is coming up in March. He usually goes to his mom's, but this year she's taking a cruise with her new boyfriend. I was considering renting that cabin up at Lake Meridian for the week, and I wondered if you and Lily might want to join us." Sarah paused, a dish towel in her hands. A vacation together felt significant, another step forward in their gradually evolving relationship. "It's just an idea," James added quickly, misinterpreting her silence. "No pressure." "No, I think it sounds wonderful," Sarah assured him. "I just need to check with David about adjusting Lily's schedule, and I'd have to see if I can take time off work." "Of course," James nodded. "It's just, Michael mentioned it might be nice to have Lily there. I think he gets bored with just his old man for company." Sarah smiled, knowing this was partly true, but also James's way of making the invitation seem casual rather than momentous. "I'll talk to Lily about it. I think she'd love it." Later that night, after they'd returned home through the snowy streets, Sarah sat on the edge of Lily's bed for their usual goodnight chat. "Did you have a good time tonight?" she asked, smoothing a wrinkle in the comforter. "Yeah," Lily nodded. "Michael showed me some advanced JavaScript techniques. He's really good at explaining things. James mentioned something about a cabin trip during spring break. What would you think about that?" Lily considered the question, twisting a strand of hair around her finger. "Like all four of us." "That's the idea," Sarah confirmed. "But I wanted to check with you first. It would mean adjusting your time with Dad." "I don't think he'd care," Lily said with a hint of the old bitterness. "He and Kimberly are always going somewhere anyway." "That's not fair," Sarah said gently. "Your dad loves spending time with you." Lily sighed. "I know. Things are better since you guys talked. He actually takes me places without her sometimes now." She was quiet for a moment before adding, "The cabin sounds fun, as long as there's internet." "I'll check on that crucial detail," Sarah promised, leaning down to kiss her daughter's forehead. "Sleep well." The following weekend, Sarah met David at a coffee shop to discuss the spring break plans. These meetings had become their new normal, neutral territory, public enough to discourage arguments, but private enough for real conversation about Lily. "A cabin trip," David repeated after Sarah explained. "With James and his son." "Yes," Sarah said, keeping her tone matter-of-fact. "It would overlap with Lily's scheduled weekend with you, so I wanted to discuss it before making any commitments." David stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "You guys are getting pretty serious, huh?" The question wasn't accusatory, just curious. "We're building something good," Sarah acknowledged. "Lily and Michael get along well, which helps." "She talks about them sometimes," David admitted. "Seems like this James guy is pretty decent." "He is," Sarah said simply. David nodded, tapping his fingers against the table in a gesture Sarah recognized as his thinking pose. The cabin trip is fine. We can shift my weekend to the following one. He hesitated before adding, Kimberly and I are looking at houses, by the way. I thought you should know, since it will affect Lily when she stays with me. Houses, Sarah repeated, processing the information. That's a big step. It is, David agreed. But it feels right. Kimberly's lease is up in June, and we've been talking about the future. He trailed off, seeming unsure how much detail to share with his ex-wife. I'm happy for you, Sarah said, and was surprised to find she meant it. The news didn't hurt the way it might have a year ago. Lily will adjust. She always does. She's a resilient kid, David agreed. Gets that from her mother. The unexpected compliment hung between them. A small acknowledgement of shared history that wasn't all bad, of the good things they'd created together despite how things had ended. Spring break arrived with perfect weather, sunny days warm enough for hiking but cool enough to enjoy the cabin's fireplace in the evenings. Lake Meridian was beautiful, surrounded by pine forests and mountains still capped with snow. The cabin itself was rustic but comfortable, with 3 bedrooms, a large open living area, and a deck overlooking the water. On their 3rd evening, after a day of hiking and exploring the small nearby town, James and Michael built a fire while Sarah and Lily prepared dinner. The easy domesticity of it all, the way they moved around each other, anticipating needs, sharing tasks, struck Sarah as they sat down to eat. This is nice, Lily said, echoing Sarah's thoughts as she reached for the salad. We should do this every year. The casual suggestion, every year, carried weight that Lily probably didn't fully recognize. Sarah caught James's eye across the table, saw the same awareness reflected there, the same careful hope. After dinner, the kids challenged each other to a card game while Sarah and James took mugs of tea out to the deck. The night was clear, stars visible in a way they never were in the city. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, shoulders touching, watching the moonlight on the lake. I think this is what contentment feels like, Sarah said eventually. I'd almost forgotten. James turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. You know, when my marriage ended, I thought that was it for me. One failed attempt, lesson learned. I threw myself into work, into being a dad, convinced that was enough. He took her hand, tracing her knuckles with his thumb. I never expected you. Me neither, Sarah admitted. After everything fell apart with David, I was so focused on putting my life back together, on being there for Lily, on just surviving. The idea of trusting someone again seemed impossible. And now, Sarah leaned against him, feeling the solid warmth of his shoulder. Now I think maybe the breaking apart was necessary. Not just the divorce, but the breaking apart of who I thought I was, what I thought my life would be. It made room for something different, something real. Inside, they could hear Lily laughing at something Michael said, the sound carrying through the open window. They're good kids, James observed. They've handled all this better than we could have hoped. They have, Sarah agreed. Though I'm pretty sure Lily has been subtly interviewing you for the past 6 months to make sure you're good enough for me. James laughed. I noticed. She's not exactly subtle with her hypothetical questions about my views on education and women's rights. And did you pass? She hasn't given me the final results, but she did tell me my chili recipe was acceptable for long-term use, which I'm taking as approval. Sarah smiled, leaning up to kiss him. High praise from a teenager. The rest of the week passed too quickly. Kayaking on the lake, board games that grew increasingly competitive, movie nights with popcorn and good-natured debates about plot holes. By the time they packed up to return to the city, it felt as if something had shifted, as if they had crossed some invisible threshold from separate units that spent time together to something more cohesive. On the drive home, with Lily asleep in the back seat, Sarah thought about the journey that had brought her here, from that night surrounded by moving boxes, feeling broken and lost, to this moment, driving back from a family vacation with people who hadn't been in her life a year ago. The path hadn't been straight or easy. There had been setbacks and difficult conversations, moments of doubt and lingering insecurities. There would be more challenges ahead. Michael leaving for college in a year, Lily navigating high school, the continuing complexities of co-parenting with David, the inevitable adjustments as she and James continued to blend their lives. But as the city skyline appeared on the horizon, Sarah felt a quiet confidence she hadn't experienced in years. This life she was building wasn't perfect or fairy tale simple, but it was authentic and hard-earned. She had stumbled and fallen and gotten back up. She had rebuilt herself piece by piece, discovering strengths she never knew she possessed. And somehow, in the process of finding herself again, she had also found this new family taking shape around her, this love that felt different from anything that had come before. Not because it was more passionate or dramatic, but because it was built on a foundation of who she really was, not who she thought she should be. As if sensing her thoughts, James reached across the console to take her hand, his eyes still on the road ahead. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Sarah smiled, squeezing his hand. "The future, and how for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid of it."